Transformers as a concept is way cooler than I had originally thought. I never understood why giant robots would ever want to transform into trucks and cars, but after watching Optimus Prime transform in the middle of a fist fight to do a donut to knock the opponent off their feet, I now understand what makes Transformers so appealing. Transformers 1 gets so many coolness points, the visuals were amazing, and the music by Brian Tyler goes so hard in the third act of this film. Let's dive right into the plot of Transformers 1. Now, the film knows it needs to start with some sort of explanation of Transformers lore for people like me, but unfortunately, instead of telling us everything we need to know in a cool prologue, instead we are subjected to watching a hologram history lesson with Orion the Miner. We are told that Energon, basically the life force for the Transformers, has stopped flowing out of the planet because the matrix of leadership has been lost, as well as all 9 of the Primes, with the exception of Sentinel Prime, who now rules Cybertron and is looking for the matrix of leadership. Orion is cut short of finding out any more information because he is chased away by other Transformers who can actually transform. Now, I don't know much about Transformers lore, but I know who this guy is, and he can definitely transform, so I was very much looking forward to whatever was coming next. After the chase, we are introduced to Orion's best friend, D16, and are clunkily told that as miners, their job is to mine for Energon since it stopped flowing. Basically, the first half of the film is hammering down on the fact that these two friends are very close. Orion is very opportunistic and wants to do everything he can to help his city, and D16 is very pragmatic and wants to do everything he can to execute his role in society. Both of these goals clash in ways that they can easily manage dealing with no problems. They go on a mission to the surface of the planet to look for the matrix of leadership and discover everything they knew about their lives was basically a lie. First of all, the Quintessians, I definitely didn't Google that, the aliens who killed the Primes are still around. And not only that, but Sentinel Prime is working for them. And he is the reason all of the Primes died in a trap. Also, he made it so the miners can't transform and makes them mine energon for the Quintessians. Why does he make the working class that he enslaves weaker by removing their ability to transform? Good question for another time. All of this information inspires Orion to, of course, go back home and tell everyone, and inspires D16 to, of course, publicly humiliate and execute Sentinel Prime. And now, Orion, D16, Alita, and B have transforming cogs, and are on their way back home with proof that Sentinel Prime is evil. On the way back, they are captured by the Royal Guard, and then half of them, including D16 and B, are captured again by Sentinel Prime and taken back to be executed. B asks a very good question, which is, why aren't we dead yet? Another great question. Sentinel says he is going to make up a story about them being traitors and publicly execute them. Now, at first, this sounds like bad writing for an excuse to keep the main characters alive, but after a few seconds of thought, it becomes even worse, because if you're Sentinel, the last thing you want to do is keep anyone alive who has incriminating information about you for any length of time. And you definitely wouldn't want to take them out into public for an execution where they could potentially talk or give away any information about yourself. But from this point on in the film, I have no complaints. At least, not in the plot. Orion and Alita come to save the day, D16 and B are set free, and D16 absolutely destroys Sentinel Prime. Orion tries to get D16 to stop killing Sentinel and gets in the way of a killing blow, and D16 lets Orion fall to his death. Then D16 freaking rips Sentinel in half in front of everyone. Then he takes his cog, which I believe makes him a Prime, and he calls himself Megatron. Orion falls to the core of Cybertron, I believe, and is given the Matrix of Leadership, and flies back up to fight Megatron, now as Optimus Prime. This fight is freaking awesome. Even as a kid, I couldn't fathom why giant robots would want to transform into vehicles, but this fight incorporates their transforming abilities so well, and I'd like to highlight a few of my favorites. First would be the transforming for the sake of knocking the opponent off his feet. That was very clever. Second was when Megatron was on top of Optimus Prime, and Prime transformed his legs in order to slide out from under Megatron. And the last is when Megatron transforms his arm into a gun, which Optimus Prime then rips off his arm, then swings back around to hit Megatron, who then in turn transforms his back in order to connect the gun back to himself. Oh man, I had no clue this film was going to be this cool. But as for the plot itself, it's pretty clunky at times. It's pretty convenient Orion and D16 were put in the same place as B, who conveniently had saved a random piece of junk out of the planet's trash that had a message from one of the original primes and the location where he was. And of course, we have Sentinel keeping his prisoners alive, but we've already mentioned that. On a whole, the plot was pretty focused once our main characters got on the surface of the planet, and it facilitated the characters' conflict pretty well. So I'm going to give Transformers 1 a 6 out of 10 for its plot. And as for the characters in the film, I thought Sentinel Prime was a great villain. Aside from my prior comments, I found him intimidating and very opportunistic in how he was able to control everyone under him while he was also having to deal with the threat of the Quintessons. B was exactly what I was expecting from the trailers. About 25% of his jokes are of a high enough quality I would actually say they landed and would be funny on a rewatch. The rest landed like this. Alita was very cool, and I very much liked her confidence and competence. She plays a very key role in the fights and is a catalyst for Optimus's drive to leadership. Her introduction was one of the worst character introductions I can remember, but I have nothing but praise for her character after her introduction. And now for the big boys, Optimus Prime and Megatron. I personally thought the friendship they established in the first half of the film was pretty great. I liked everything about it until Megatron got so distant from Optimus. I wish they would have had more conversations about their decisions on what to do with Sentinel. I think Megatron's desire to kill Sentinel is entirely justified. Optimus has a line where he says, "This new order can't start with an execution," and I could not disagree more. This man murdered all 9 of the original primes and enslaved part of the Autobots race to fund a warring alien race. Megatron's right. He dies. We aren't given enough pushback from Optimus. The one time in the film they were about to have an interesting conversation, they both get knocked out, and it's not continued until the final fight. The crowning jewel of this relationship comes right after Megatron has just shot Optimus. And as Optimus is falling, Megatron catches him, showing us that he instinctively still wants his friend, but then he realizes what opportunities he would have without Optimus trying to stop him. And Megatron says, "I'm done saving you," and lets Optimus fall. I thought it was quite brilliant. For the characters, I'm going to give an 8 out of 10. I've already talked about the comedy a bit, mostly B's comedy, which I wasn't too impressed with. That's not to say it's all bad. I did enjoy some of his physical comedy, and as a matter of fact, I enjoyed most of the physical comedy in the film. The movie desperately wants to be very funny. That is definitely not what this film was going to be remembered for. So instead of giving a score for the comedy, which is extremely subjective, I'm going to give a score for the movie's coolness, which is probably even more subjective. I am a big fan of things that are cool, and I do indeed take it into account when judging a film. And when I think about this movie, especially as someone who has never seen a full Transformers movie, oh, did I mention this is the first Transformers movie that I haven't fallen asleep watching? Yeah, my eyes were glued to the screen for the entirety of this film. I didn't know why Optimus Prime couldn't transform, and when our protagonists get their cogs and double in size, there is no better word to describe what I was seeing than cool. And additionally, when Optimus Prime gets the Matrix of Leadership, that upgrade and upcoming fight was some grade A eye candy. I am going to give Transformers 1 an 8.9999 out of 10 for its coolness. After much consideration, I've decided to give Transformers 1 a final score of 7 out of 10. It shocked me with how engaging it was, and I will definitely be buying this on Blu-ray and watching it every so often. It's definitely better than any other Transformers movie I've seen, and it's not even close. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see all you subscribers later.
So...
Are you a hobo?
No, I'm not a hobo, but I am
Optimus Prime.
I disagree strongly.